Good morning and welcome to Hope Warriors. My name's FayDay and you're on the FayDay Show, Hope Warrior, where we're united around the idea of hope, healing, and wholeness. And today we are focusing on our featured guest, Dr. Carol Cooper, which also has become my friend. And Carol, welcome.
Good morning.
I am so glad to have you here. Carol and I met, but before I get started, I wanted to say Hope Warriors brought to you by The Rec here in Kaiser, Oregon, a great place for bowling, for event gathering, for youth mentoring, also by Nolan Productions. If you want to have a song produced, if you want to have a song recorded, please call Nolan Productions. Also by Stella Dinwiddie Insurance Agency and Donna Prigmore Consulting. And again, now I get to welcome my friend and actually healer. I mean that on the planetary sense. I know God is my healer, in the big picture, which Carol directs me to. But Dr. Carol Cooper is a doctor of chiropractic medicine. And you didn't start out that way, did you?
No, I started out actually in second grade when it was the, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like, I want to be a nurse. I mean, I already knew I wanted to be a healer. And of course, that's all we knew about then. And so I went to nursing school first. And in nursing school, the oldest instructor was actually a nun, and she introduced us to holistic healing. Whoa. And as I worked in nursing, one of the things that we did, when you fill a syringe and there's extra medication in the syringe, you squirt it out on the carpet or on the wall or whatever. It was eating holes in the carpet and the wall. And it's like, I don't want to do this. We're injecting this right into people. And so I got a book on... It was a book that had to do with all different healing types, acupuncture, naturopathic, chiropractic. And I was really fascinated with the naturopathic because it's all natural medicine. And I was told, I was in California at the time, and they said, well, their naturopaths are only licensed in 7 states. And it's like, oh, so I chose to be a chiropractor instead. And in Oregon, chiropractic have a really broad license. We can do proctology, obstetrics, minor surgery. I don't, but the license covers that. And
you, I came to you because I found out you had a hyperbaric chamber in your clinic, and I needed that because I was diagnosed in June, most people know on this program, with pancreatic cancer. And I found out 3 things that cancer hates. 1 was oxygen. 2, alkaline water. 3, they hate sugar. They love sugar. And they love acidity. So I wanted to deprive it of both. So I quit sugar. I quit acidity. I got oxygen and on the regular at your place. And that's how I learned. But when I first came there, one of the things that you did for me is you gave me a recommendation of a enzyme that would assist me in my body transformation because I knew that my pancreas was overworking because of the bad things I'd eaten and what I put in my body. And you talked to me about this enzyme. I took it this morning. I've not failed one day since that day that you gave it to me to take it. And I now get it in bottles of 300. And I mean, it's a serious daily, I wouldn't not eat today. So why would I not be healthy in my enzymes today? So that's the beginning, and it kept me healthy. What you did for me kept me healthy all the way until I got to full on treatment in Arizona. So one of the reasons that you're here is I want people to know about you. I want people to know what you are about. And so I want to continue that journey. So you got into chiropractic, and that also didn't end your journey. It wasn't like, now I'm going to be a chiropractor. Then what?
Before I even started going to chiropractic school, I got introduced to Touch for Health, which is basic applied kinesiology. It's muscle testing, but it gets into nutrition, it gets into the acupuncture system, it's whole body health that people can do at home. And so as I learned that, Then I went to chiropractic college, and then I took the professional courses in applied kinesiology. And anytime we have a problem, there's multiple factors in the problem. And the more factors that we deal with, the more apt we are to get results. And so applied kinesiology just gives me a whole bunch more tools in the toolbox. I mean, chiropractic is one, AK is one, nutrition, acupuncture, hyperbaric, infrared, exercise. One of the books that I brought is pain-free. And one of my clients actually turned me on to this book years ago, and it's static exercises. It looks sort of like this. And one of the stories in this book that impressed me was this guy came into the therapist. He needed a total hip. And after doing these exercises, he didn't need a total hip anymore.
That's fantastic.
That's impressive.
That's
so
fantastic.
Everybody with chronic pain, I tell them to get this book. And
Yeah,
I've got another copy at home, and I find them at the secondhand store if I can.
I'm a believer in that. I know many people who've gone through multiple surgeries. I mean, on their back, on their knees, on their wrists, on their hips, blah, blah, blah. And they're the same people, all those surgeries. And I'm like, pretty sure that our body wasn't, and, unless you had some anomaly, to your genetics, our body wasn't to break down that easily, and they're young. They're my age or younger. So I feel like that's young. And I know it sounds weird. It's almost 70 to think it's young. But I feel like we should be moving. We should be, and again, for people who can't move, please don't, be offended. But I'm just saying, if you can, like, if all you can move is one finger, move it. Please move it so you can continue to move it. Am I wrong?
Correct. That's pretty much it. And there's things that can help. Like, also in my office, I have an inversion table, because when you get up in the morning, you're about a half inch taller than you are at the end of the day, just because the body weight and gravity pushes the water out of the discs. And so at night you re-expand. And so anybody...
That's why rest is important, right?
Well, yes, rest is important. Sleep is important. You keep hearing... I get a whole bunch of health type emails. And sleep is a key factor in just about every health condition, including mental health, and maintaining mental health so that you don't end up with dementia. But I have one of the things I have in the office is an inversion table where you don't hang upside down, but you hang at a tilt. And so anybody with neck problems, with chronic degeneration in their neck or in their low back, I tell them to do traction. Every day, do traction. And that's one thing that I learned in nursing school that pretty much they don't do anymore. And that's traction. Because when I was in nursing school, if somebody came in with low back pain that needed surgery, they probably got 2 weeks of traction in bed in the hospital first to see what that did. So I tell people, I mean, there's multiple ways to do traction, but if you have a chronic problem, do traction. And I was in an auto accident several years ago, and I blew a disc out in my neck, and I have a neck traction unit, and I do neck traction every day because it will at least slow down the degeneration process and maintain function. As will movement, as will eating right, and some other things that we're going to be talking about today.
Correct. So I guess the question that I have for you is, you're not a licensed naturopath, but you continue to pursue the understanding of what natural medicine is. Can you speak more about why that is and what, I guess, motivates you?
I believe that everybody can get well. I don't care what it is. And it's just another tool. Now, naturopaths can prescribe medicines. I cannot.
You mean like prescription meds, like Oxy and all that sort of thing?
Prescription meds.
Prednisone, blah,
yeah,
blah.
I mean, I can suggest you take ibuprofen, over-the-counter stuff. But I cannot write you a prescription for pain pills or antibiotics.
Which you like because you don't want to do that anyway.
There's always alternatives to the drugs. Mm-hmm. And most of the drugs are based on plant medicine anyway. Mm-hmm.
Originally. Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you need an antibiotic, oregano, garlic, golden seal, I mean, there's a whole bunch.
There is.
Tea tree oil, lemon oil. I mean, the people that sell essential oils know all about the antibiotic properties of the essential oils.
Exactly.
So,
if you need a pain relief, what are some things that people can consider that would be natural?
White willow bark. Mm-hmm. White willow bark is where they get aspirin from. It's a anti-inflammatory. Mm-hmm. Boswellia is anti-inflammatory. I was going to recommend that because she recommended that for me, and it kept me out of pain. Most of the pain, when you have pain, it's caused by chemicals irritating the nerve endings. And most of those are inflammatory chemicals. So if you can deal with inflammation, that takes care of a lot of the pain.
Nice. Well, it's just, to me, it's just so, it seems so intuitive once you start thinking that way. I've been that way, and between the ages of, I grew my kids up with no sugar until they were 2 because I knew back then not to do sugar, right? Because it created fat cells. Once you have them, then they don't go away, and they're always starving for sugar. And
let me break in on that one. Sugar is the number one inflammatory agent. So if you have inflammation, cut out the sugar.
Yeah. And the second one would be processed food, right?
Processed foods, right.
Which are largely chemicals, are largely sugar related, a lot, the processed foods. But there's another part of the processing that keeps things on the shelf longer, that creates inflammation in your joints, in your muscle tissue, in your cartilage. There are people right now with a thing called polychondritis, which is cartilage inflammation, and it's terribly painful.
Well, let's go back to margarine. It's a trans fat. Normal fats have spikes on their fat molecules that look like this. A trans fat has spikes that look like this. That's your margarines, your Criscos, and your body absorbs these. And in the cell wall, every cell wall is made of fat and protein. And so we're incorporating these trans fats right into our cell structure, and they basically throw a wrench in the works. Mm-hmm.
And then your mitochondria don't work, and now the rest of your body. Ultimately.
Your body doesn't work. Doesn't work right. And one of the books that I come across a long time ago is, I found this at LifeSource actually, is Nourishing Traditions. Mm-hmm. And this is written by a nutritionist, but what she does is take regular food that we eat and give you a different way of preparing it so it's healthier. Nice. But also to go back to healthy food, live food, sprouted food. So she talks about fermented, how to cook with flours so that they're healthier. But basically anything that's white, like white flour, white sugar, white shortening, we don't want. Because
everything that would have been nutritional in it has been bleached out, in other words.
Right? Because when they process flour, white flour, they take out all of the nutrition, and all that's left is the starch. Right.
And if you look at Crisco, which is pure white, the original idea was lard, which was out of fat of animal, and it's not white. It's kind of brownish. It's kind of grayish yellow. And the people went for the visual appeal, but that's not what our body needs.
It's fake.
It's fake.
And with technology now, there's a lot of fake food out there. And the number one thing I tell people, on nutrition is eat real food. Mm-hmm. And if you can get it from the farmer's market, or organic is what you want, because organic is got lots fewer pesticides anyway, pesticides and herbicides and chemicals.
Right. And when one says organic, that is what the definition of organic means. You know how it was grown and what kind of soil it was grown. It is not genetically modified seeds. It's none of that. It is, and it doesn't have a bunch of pesticides to keep it from having bugs. You may buy a zucchini that was off of the plant that may have had bugs, but the zucchini is awesome, right?
Correct.
And there are lots of natural ways to get rid of bugs. Like one of the things that my mom does is she does two things. She puts two ingredients together that are non-harmful to anybody: vinegar and one more thing. I can't remember what it is. And she just sprays them on the weeds and they all die. But they're non-harmful. You could ingest them.
Right.
But they're harmful to weeds, but not us.
Right. Well, it changes the pH of the soil.
Yeah.
And right.
And it can't work. So there's just so many cool things that are out there. So one of the things that I noticed about you is, as compared to most people, is you're not trying to get clients so that you can just get them and keep them where they stay needing you. You legitimately want people to get well and move on.
Right.
Which is how I practice my pastoral counseling and coaching. I want people to move on. I want future present. I want, that. So tell the listeners why that is for you.
One of the things, let's see, I was still going to school, still working as a nurse, and I had ear problems, and I went to an ear doctor, and they scheduled 30 patients for 30 minutes. And I told the doctor that I was going to see an acupuncturist before I let him cut in my nose. And he spent 5 minutes lecturing me, telling me that, I was a nurse, I should know better than to go to an acupuncturist. And I left, and it's like, I will not practice like that. That's cramming so many people into the schedule that you can't get a job done. Mm-hmm. Practice management for any doctor's office, including chiropractics, is you schedule as many patients as you possibly can in at a short a time frame as you possibly can, and make as much money as you possibly can. If you go to your medical doctor, they're going to give you 10 minutes at most, and one problem. You discuss one issue. And I don't like that. Mm-hmm. And so when people come to see me, I want to know what all's going on.
Yeah. Because
a lot of times they won't tell me something, and that's the key piece of information that I need to know. Or they think that I'm just concerned about their spine and not their foot or their shoulder or their wrist, and so they won't tell me about it. And even some of my own clients that should know better, they'll come in 3 years later and say, I've had this problem for several years, and I've been going to all of these other doctors and physical therapists, and I still have the problem. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's a one-visit fix.
Yeah.
And it's like, come to see me first.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Then go to your physical therapist.
Well, what I appreciated about coming in, I remember you asking me questions that no one had asked yet from my diagnosis. I've been, I was to the ER doctor, I was to the gastroenterologist, I was to the oncologist, and no one had asked the questions that you were asking. And it was, which is fantastic, that you were asking. Well, I didn't, and you were asking because the connection between the skeletal, the muscle, all of that, and the mind and the spirit and the, what is it your life is like? Because when I first met you, I was on blood pressure meds. And I'm not now.
Good.
Yeah. I haven't been on blood pressure meds since literally probably less than a week after. And I took my blood pressure today because I'm getting ready to travel. I thought it'd be helpful to just be aware, 123/70, So, I mean, people at my age would die for that kind of a blood pressure, right? So that's the gain, in addition. I didn't come in for that. I came in for oxygen.
Right.
You see, but I got so much more.
But see, you came in for oxygen, but because of your diagnosis, I proceeded to dump on you all sorts of other ideas that would impact the problem.
Right. And I never once heard you say, you should do this. You said, here's an idea, here's an idea, here's an idea. And I went, oh, that's a good idea. That sounds like a good idea. But you didn't say, here's an idea. You said, here's an idea and here's why. And I love that because I knew the purpose of what you were saying to me.
Right, because doctors can't fix people. We can tell people what they need to do at home to fix themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's interesting. I heard from a lot of people in my world that I should pursue standard of care. Which was radiation and chemo. I know. I laugh out loud. We can't help but laugh because had I pursued standard of care, I would have been gone roughly 6 months ago. And it's hard because I'm not trying to, I was going to say I'm not trying to influence other people's decision, but that's not true. I really am.
Right.
Okay, I really am. If I'm honest, I really am. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to be a model for what's possible. Does that make sense? So if I came into your office and you told me all those things that were possible and I walked out and didn't do anything different, I don't think I'd be alive today, Carol.
Correct.
I really don't.
Well, cancer grows in a specific environment, like you said, acid, sugar, improper nutrition,
high stress, bad
toxins.
rest.
So when you're dealing with cancer, you have to deal with multiple factors. Mm-hmm. You have to change the physical environment to an environment where it doesn't want to grow.
Yeah.
And that takes multiple things. One thing that I've been telling people for probably 30 years is about a Rife machine. Dr. Rife was back in the 1930s, and he developed a microscope where he could see live bacteria and viruses. And then he developed a frequency generator that would, and he made note of the frequency that would explode the particular viruses and bacteria. And he also noted the frequencies that would explode cancer cells. And one of the tests that they gave him in 1934, they gave him 16 patients. I think 14 had cancer and 2 had TB, something like that. And they were all going to die. They basically on their deathbed. They were going to die within a couple weeks. He cured them all by exploding the cancer viruses or the cancer cells. He treated them, every 3 days. It was kill the cancer cells, do 2 days of detoxing, kill some more, do another 2 days of detoxing, because you have to get rid of the exploded cell debris.
Right.
And part of the enzymes that I suggested that Faye take, you take on an empty stomach, and they chomp up all of the debris in your blood that's not supposed to be there. So that's the biggest reason she has not had any detox symptoms from killing the cancer cells.
Yeah.
So Dr. Rife's equipment is updated. It's computerized. It runs on, it's state-of-the-art. Now, there's a lot of companies out there that make Rife machines. The company that I purchased their equipment because I heard about it several months ago from a clinic in England that does frequency treatment, and they use the Spooky 2 Rife equipment, and that's state of the art. And And it's the best equipment that's out there for the Rife machine.
Well, what's interesting, Carol, is I was in Scottsdale, and I see it here in some clinics as well. People have the electromagnetic fields of the pad, the beamer, the different things like that. So which is a smaller version, if you will, of this frequency notion. So we all know that frequency works. We all understand that, right? But when you get the actual machine from the actual person who actually created it, do you see what I'm saying? You get that higher frequency capability, and the database is full in the Spooky 2 of all the diseases that it will kill. And it shows you, and they teach you how to use it. And what I love is being able to come over to your house, and just as a friend, and watch that machine work. And then it wasn't long that I wanted to get one of my own.
Right.
And I'm so happy. But there is a facet of the healing that you do that blows me away. And that is, at one point, I was just practicing on the plasma tube, I think it was. I was laying down on my back. I was at your house, and we had just troubleshot a lot of networking stuff that we were working out, right? And I was just laying there, just relaxing. You came over and you looked down at me and you said, is there anything that you're agreeing with the enemy of your soul that is stopping your healing?
Where we agree with death, yes.
Yeah, where we agree with death. And I said, I don't know, let me think. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that my husband's fear of me dying was what I was still concerned about. That meant agreement, right? So we did a process of dealing with that. And I remember after that process of prayer and dealing with that, Carol, having such a relief of pressure, like a 300-pound weight was taken off my chest. And it's just the other aspect. You know, we're a whole being. We're spiritual, we're social, we're mental, we're emotional, we're physical. And we forget in medicine how much the spiritual is a component of it.
Correct.
And I appreciated that about you. It was a very peaceful process for me, very peaceful. Good. But you knew you were safe to ask me the question, too, because you know my faith.
Oh, right, yeah. What we did at the time is we went to heaven's courts, and we dealt with the agreement as a court case.
Mm-hmm. And I remember us praying over that. And one of the things in court that you get to do is you basically stand next to the accuser and you bring the blood of Jesus over that agreement.
Right, yes.
And once you have, the blood of Jesus takes care of it. And if you read the scripture and you understand the scripture, it says he bore our afflictions. By his stripes, we are healed. So that's all been taken care of, right? And I know that in my gut, right, in my whole body. And so when we did that, it was just like, and so after that, Satan had to leave. I mean, he was legislated out of the court. He has no accusation. And I got to share that in my conference recently, too. So I just wanted you to know that
good.
I worked with that. So that was amazing. So, one of the books that you did share with me, and I actually ended up purchasing, was Justin Abrams' book, Beyond Human. How did you find out about him, and how did you find out about that book? Because it has transformed how I view my experience on the planet here. I've always known that my planetary experiences was just a kind of a pit stop to eternity. I've always known that. But I had no idea of the right now connection that I could have to that. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Well, let's back up.
Uh-huh.
The book that transformed my life and my view of God, most of my view of God growing up, and it probably is similar across the board, is that God the Father is out to get me. If I do anything wrong, I'm going to get, whacked.
Yeah.
And the book that changed that is The Shack by Paul Young. And I probably read the book once a year still. But when I read it initially, I'd read a sentence and I'd get triggered and I'd slam the book shut. And then I'd have to process, my view of God totally changed. Mm-hmm. Then I started looking Paul Young up on YouTube and listening to everything he had to say. And then I started looking up other people, that he did conferences with. Brad Jersak has a book out on Can You Hear Me, God? And it's changing my whole view of God into that God the Father is good, and that now I can sit in his lap and enjoy sitting in his lap. And then a friend of mine was listening to Justin Abraham, and she said, you should listen to this guy. So I looked him up on YouTube, and I got his book, and then it's like, who does he do conferences with? Mm-hmm. And I found Mike Parsons. And right now I signed up for the Engaging God program with Mike Parsons. It's Freedom Apostolic Resource Center out of the UK. So it's freedomarc.org with Mike Parsons. But he has the ability to teach from kindergarten level, step by step, all the way up. And his whole purpose is to engage us with God. Mm-hmm.
And I've listened to both of those folks on podcasts while in the hyperbaric chamber. that's what when you hear something good. I don't know about you, but I need a safe place to just listen and take it in. And my number one listening thing is the Bible. I listen to it. Sometimes I'll let it play all night in my ears because I know that that's what lasts forever. And what these two gentlemen are saying, and Paul Young as well, it is biblical in nature. And while some people may have difficulty understanding the higher order thinking of both Paul Young and Parsons and Abrams, of all of them, there's more. It's not just what we see and what our minds can conceive. Just like I'm not a quilter, okay? I've done applique. I have quilted, but I've seen your quilts. We're going to bring them in here in the future so you can actually visually see them because they're amazing. But I couldn't say I'm a quilter. And it's not until I sit with somebody like you that I learn the skill of quilting. Do you see what I'm saying? It's the same thing in the spiritual. Right. It's the same thing. God uses natural things to help illustrate the spiritual. And if you think that you're an expert in all things spiritual because you have this one view, you're going to be very limited down here, but you're also going to be very surprised up there. When you see him, yes, you will get to see him, even if you're limited, but you're not going to get to experience all that he is wanting to experience. 'Cause if you imagine that we're in his image, then you've got to imagine that his image is great and it's big and it's more than you can ask or think.
We're his kids. We have his DNA. Yeah. And he wants us to grow up into his image.
Yeah. Which, when you talk about DNA, it makes me think back to the Rife machine, because one of the things that you shared with me was that when astronauts, you would share that DNA process that they use to send frequency to astronauts that you shared with me?
Oh, okay.
Because that's how powerful the frequency is.
This is called quantum entanglement. And I don't know when this was. I probably heard this 20 years ago. But they took some lip cells of somebody. They put them in a petri dish. They put them 50 miles away in a sealed chamber. They put him in a sealed chamber. I think they gave him an electric shock, but they startled him. And the lip cells 50 miles away in the sealed chamber responded at the same nanosecond. NASA did a similar thing. They took two electrons, they had them spinning in synchronized, and they sent one out in space, and when they were about ready to lose the radio signal, they reversed the spin of the electron on Earth, and the one out in space reversed at the same nanosecond. This is called quantum entanglement. And that's part of the Spooky 2 equipment is using remote treatment. Actually, this is part of the reason why remote healers can do
work. Yeah.
And yesterday, was it yesterday? This is Wednesday, Monday. The email that I got from Mike Parsons, he has a blog that comes out periodically. And this actually had a science paper attached on the science of what we would call psychic and spiritual stuff. It was the actual science of this stuff.
Yeah. We're going to be seeing more and more of this in the near future. And the reason I say that is because as we see AI and all these other things on the planet begin to ramp up, you got to know that the things, everything that can be used for good can also be used for evil. We've detected that, right? But creation of things is a manifestation of our actual being as a person. The ability to create, the ability to mentally and physically and spiritually manifest things has always been there, right? It's just that we are limited by hearing when you're 5 years old, no, honey, that'll never happen. Actually you hear when you're little that you can do anything, but when you're 18, you hear that will never happen, not you type thing. And we get squelched in our curiosity and we get squelched because when we are little, somebody will say, stop asking questions. And the only reason that I know you is that I began to ask questions like, where is there a hyperbaric chamber? Where is there someplace I can get oxygen? And that question led to many more questions.
Right.
Which led to many more answers. So there are levels of care. You want to talk a little bit about levels of care that you process through, like what the body wants now, for example. Do you remember us talking about that? Of the levels of care, what the body wants now, what the body wants later, and what it might need again. Yeah. In some of our conversation.
Probably the easiest way to address that is nutrition. Like step number one is like detoxing. So with detoxing, it's like you can go on a juice fast. You take herbs to help clean out your kidneys, your colon, your liver. You sweat out the toxins. You quit putting the toxins in. And then the next step would be, okay, put in the nutrition that you need. Real food. One of the cancer clinics down in Mexico does juicing, or like with the Vitamix, you can do the juicing, but you're still getting the whole plant. You're putting in high doses of nutrition that you need specifically. And then when your body's had enough of that, then you can do maintenance dose. Good nutrition, but you're not doing the super high levels.
Exactly. The first 3 months, I literally just juiced my food. I literally drank more greens than any human that I know of at that point. And it kept me well. And so if I ever have any sort of like just not feeling my best, I'll just do juice. I'll just juice my food. And it's just easier. But now I can have it with the pulp. But technically right now in my world, this is how things have progressed, is I literally can eat anything I want now. Anything and not have pain, which is a really good feeling. But I don't take that to the level of going back to processed or sugar or any of those things. I can eat solid anything I want, all kinds of meats,
Well, I'm to the point where if you offered me a donut, that's poison.
Yeah. Why would you offer me that? Do you know that would kill me?
I mean, 100 years ago, white flour and water was wallpaper paste. So every time, it's like, oh, this is good sourdough bread. Excuse me, it's fermented wallpaper paste.
Yeah. Wow. When you think of it like that, it's like absolutely
I don't want that.
Surprising. Yeah. So when someone comes, let's take a person through when they come into your clinic, okay, just for a minute. What's the first thing that you do when somebody comes into your clinic so they know what to expect?
I ask them what's going on.
What's going on? Okay.
Why are they here? Where all do they hurt? What are all their health issues? What medications are they taking that they don't think would impact? I'm not dealing with that problem. It's like they don't tell me their blood pressure medications automatically because they didn't come for blood pressure.
Yeah.
And it's like, tell me, what all your health problems are. That's step number one.
Yeah.
Do you exercise? Do you have any allergies? A lot of times people give me a whole list of their food allergies, and it's like, we can deal with that.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of stuff start in the gut. In fact, if you pay attention to nutrition news, they're starting to say a lot of mental problems are gut-related.
Well, if you think about that for a minute, let's just out loud as a psychologist. That's my forte. Your nutrition and body health, right? But if I have something going on in my gut and I'm feeling a little anxious inside my physical body, I might interpret that mentally as I'm stressed, I'm anxious. But really, what's going on in here?
Right, is your chemistry.
Yeah. What if I'm not anxious? What if I just have something going on in my gut that is creating a kind of pressure that I'm not used to?
Well, it's the microflora in your gut that affects your brain. In fact, they're starting to say that your gut is your second brain.
Yeah.
You have a brain, a heart mind, a gut mind, a kidney mind, and that the microorganisms in your gut actually communicate and affect your mental processes.
It makes sense because if something is wonky in there, it wants to tell your brain, hey, you need to do something different. I mean, technically, it's like the DNA we talked about. There's DNA in there that went toward the health and is trying to communicate and say, we need to get back to health.
Right. Okay, let's say somebody comes to see me and they've got general toxicity. Your liver is in charge of all of your chemistry balance. So your liver is in charge of making chemicals and detoxing chemicals. However, everything that you eat gets processed in your intestines, and when it gets absorbed, it all goes to the liver before it goes anywhere else. All the blood from your intestines goes to the liver first. But if your liver is busy handling all of the toxins that get reabsorbed from an unhealthy gut, it can't do all of the chemical processes that it's supposed to do. So it doesn't matter whether somebody comes in with inflammation or with their hormones all screwed up. If it's a toxicity problem, we have to get the colon cleaned out first. And then the liver can do its job and process toxins.
It's kind of like my thought went to, tell me if I'm off, okay? If I want to use the restroom, but my toilet is plugged, and I put more toilet paper in there and all the other stuff, right? Then it's just going to keep because my toilet's plugged.
Right.
The colon is plugged.
Right.
It's toxic. It has maybe just a little pin place that things can go through, just little. And if it's clogged, oh my. I mean, you can just see it backing up. We've heard of people having 25 pounds of, is that possible?
The people that do colonics say typically there's 10 years worth of crap caked on the inside of our colon.
Yeah, it's time to clean that out.
So, yeah.
It's time
and so that's part of the increased fiber in your diet. That's part of, eat your prunes, exercise, drink water.
Yeah, movement again.
Real water too, not
Yeah, not go ahead.
Plastic.
Not yeah, okay.
I mean, water and plastic is not good. I mean, plastic isn't good because we actually absorb the plastic. But
which could be another processed toxin in you,
right? It's toxin, right. But plastics that have been in a hot car is even worse because heat makes plastics degrade and release their stuff into the water. Yeah,
it leaches. The Urethane and the poly, there's another poly word in there. Absolutely. So once you get cleansed out, okay, and detoxed, I've heard people who go on detox and they've said, oh, I just felt so shaky. Can you talk a little bit about how to avoid that kind of, that feeling of, just kind of unrest, if you will?
Okay, let's go back to people that are on diets. Say you want to lose 20 pounds. Mm-hmm. And fat stores toxins. And if you go on a fat loss diet, all of those fat cells release the toxins. And then you feel really crappy. Mm-hmm. And so you stop your diet and you put the fat back on that store the toxins.
Yeah.
So the people that actually do a detox, the fat will come off and stay off because they're getting rid of the toxins. But you don't want to you don't want to detox faster than you can get the toxins out of your body. And so you do slow.
And that's one of the things that Dr. Cooper can help you with is a really healthy detox that will do it nice and slow. And she gave me the recommendations, and I have 2 things. It's a morning and an afternoon one, and I'll just spend, a week to do that. It's just a week long. It's not, and I'm not eating anything. I'm just eating very light. That's when I was juicing my food a lot, and it was easy. I knew the things that were going in me were going to be nutrients to my body, but it helped me detox the things that were still hurting me.
And this is herbs.
Yes, they're herbs.
And if you can't afford any detox herbs, your budget's low, dig the dandelions out of your yard. Mm-hmm. As long as they're not sprayed, dandelion will detox your liver, your colon, and your kidneys.
And so you just make a tea, right?
Make a tea.
Which, some things are just so simple. We just discount it. And I don't want you to discount it. I think that's what I'm here to talk about today, because I'm here. I get to be here to talk about it. You know what I mean? So and now I cannot talk about it. I can't talk about the hope behind this. I can't not talk about the healing and the wholeness, because you're mentally present when you're not in pain. You're right. Mentally present when you're not in inflammation. You're emotionally available when you're not inflamed. These are things that your family needs, that your intimate relationships needs. So it has a rippling effect across all domains of your life.
Right. Right. And I recognize now that when I have pain behavior, it's like, oh, okay. And this is where I start, my thought processes are all stressed out. Uh-huh. And my eating is wrong. Uh-huh. And it's like, this is pain behavior. Yeah. So let's do something about the pain as opposed that actually helps as opposed to what I'm doing instead.
Exactly. No, there's so many exciting things out there that once you get away from Western meds, which, by the way, is new medicine. Now, I hope you guys all know that. Western meds has only been around since the 1800s, literally.
Correct.
Before that, it was everything we're talking about. People ate whole foods. People used plants to heal themselves. People used poultices. They used lots of different things. Another person that Dr. Cooper recommended was a lady named is it Dr. Barbara O'Neill or just Barbara O'Neill? Barbara O'Neill, the nutritionist out of Australia. And I started listening to her, and it was just like I was hearing Carol in my ears. It was just like, okay, well, she knows what she's talking about. That's awesome. And so I used a lot of her videos too, as well as many of the things that you're sharing here today. We're coming to the close of our show, but before we do, I want to ask you, how do people get a hold of Dr. Carol Cooper? What's the best way?
You give me a phone call, 503-393-6071.
Okay. And how booked out are you at this point?
That depends on the day.
Yeah.
I'm not hugely busy.
Okay.
But it depends on when you want to come in and how booked that day is.
One of the beauties of Dr. Cooper is she's busy, but I mean, she has a lot of people coming in, but they're also going back out and they're living their life. Like, I don't call her every day. Like I was at her place, I would say 3 to 4 days a week.
Right.
Doing the hyperbaric, right? It's not that I don't need it or want it. It's just like legitimately I'm out living life. I love the hyperbaric chamber. It's a comfort place for me because I get to listen to cool podcasts and I know I'm taking in oxygen. And she knows how to run hers. Hers was way more efficient than the one down in Arizona for me, just so you know. Yours was the hyperbaric chamber. Yeah. Meaning that you have an oxygen mask with your chamber. They didn't. I just didn't feel at the end of my hyperbaric experience down there, I didn't feel as good as I did here.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
part of the hyperbaric is that you not only get your oxygen by mask, but I've got an oxygen concentrator, and you can get, I have it set at 8.5 liters, which gives you 54% oxygen by mask, as opposed to 21% oxygen in room air.
Yeah.
Which is effective also, because what the hyperbaric chamber does is it makes you utilize oxygen better. It gets the oxygen into every place in your body that water is. So if you have an area of insufficient circulation where you don't have good blood supply, it will still get oxygen to the area.
Which is fantastic for people with neuropathy, fantastic for a wound healing, fantastic for the things like
post-stroke,
which I had literally in November and January of 22. Which thank you, COVID. That was a COVID-related stroke. I didn't take the vaccine, but the spike proteins create that ability to stroke.
And the frequency equipment can deal with the spike proteins.
Yes. Yeah, which is awesome. That and some ivermectin and a little mebendazole, and you're good to go.
Right, yeah.
With all the pain relief. Well, I really appreciate having you here, and I want to have you back. And when you come back, I want you to bring your quilts, okay? And we will come back with maybe what you've learned or what you're doing now, because you're always learning. I mean, you don't ever stop learning, do you?
No, that's the fun part.
It is the fun part. And you most recently acquired a
spinning wheel and a loom.
Which is fantastic. So she's literally learning. She is a wood smith. I just can't tell you, a quilt smith. She will be a spinner, a loom smith, because I know her, because that's what she does. And she also cares very much for you and how you're doing holistically, okay? And as much as you will let her, she will help you. And so...
And that's key, as much as you let me. Because there's people that come and they only want one little thing, and I mean, I'll tell them the additional stuff, once or twice, and then I won't tell them anymore.
Yeah. And it's up to us to go out and do what we're supposed to do. So once again, your phone number, Carol, and way to reach you
is 503-393-6071.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here today.
You're welcome.
I love it.